Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin podcast. I'm here tonight with Zach. Zach, man, what an unbelievable day for FC Cincinnati. Some ups, some downs. Preparing for this episode, we've had a week off now between the last one. I was thinking we're not going to really have a ton of content. We're kind of having a little bit of a stretch on some things. But the new year kind of brought us some awesome news today. Some ups and downs, like I said, but we'll cover it all. But how are you doing tonight?
Feeling good. Busy day at work, and then I come home to some great news. Talk about a little bit later, but Christmas came a little late for us.
That's right, man. I'll take it though. I'm pretty excited about it. I kind of real quickly just want to recap some things that happened this past week. Some big news. We'll kind of do a breakdown of the week. Some of the big news that happened today, we're going to touch on. Spoiler: Miles Robinson signed for FC Cincinnati. Brandon Vazquez is on his way out, but we're going to talk about some rumors. And then in the second part of the episode, Zach, we're going to get your takes on some transfers that you'd likely, hope for FC to see. I think the transfer window, do we continue this? Do we kind of invest the money? What do we do with it? And then kind of a point that I wanted to bring up in the offseason was that FC Cincinnati is going to be adding a stadium district adjacent to TQL. So I think this is something that we can kind of touch on, and my excitement for it, I think echoes yours. I'm pretty pumped about it, but stay tuned to the second part and we'll kind of chat about that. But first off, Zach, just yesterday, there was a photo from Wolverhampton Wanderers over in England, the Premier League. They won their game and they do a team locker room photo. And one Yerson Mascara shows up in this team photo. And so it's the new year and he's technically back with his home club. It appears from all signs that he's training with them. But what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't been up to speed like you have probably on that, but yeah, I'm very glad that he's back with his squad because I think he's got such a bigger and brighter future than FC Cincinnati. And I think really if he can get some minutes, starting minutes with the Wolves, I mean, I think that's huge. Going into I guess the latter half of the season, I think the Wolves will definitely need somebody with fresh legs, freshish. He's been
Precious.
off for like maybe a month, but it's with our season. Heck, you only have another month till a season starts. So really, I think Wolves are going to be really thankful that he's back in their squad.
Yeah, great shout. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're sitting about mid-table right now in the Premier League. So they could use a boost. Obviously, he's more of a defensive player, but he brings a good offensive presence as well in the air. I would have loved to see him score more header goals, but he had that memorable goal, against Philadelphia in the playoffs for us. He has some killer celebrations as well. So I'll be missing, his love of the game, his energy that he brought to our team. I just wanted to, thank him for his services for FC Cincinnati. Man, what a wonderful loan, spell that he had for the year that he did with us. I can't think of many other bigger loans in the MLS that we've ever seen.
I was literally just about to say that. I don't think there's been a loan that has been able to bring the value that Mascara brought. With
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine him being very expensive, but yeah, being a loan and being able to push us into a supporter shield and get us that far into the playoffs. He carried us, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, he really did. And stepped in big moments when, maybe Miazga's out or we're relying upon, more of him and Hagelin or him and Murphy. Yerson had the speed, the physicality, obviously for this league, but like you said, Zach, for the Premier League, he's ready. I think it's his time. As much as I hate to see him go, I'm going to be supporting him. And I really love how he has kind of embraced our club too. And I think if he looks back on his time with us, he'd say it was a success and that, he really developed in his career because he really hadn't found his footing at a really decent competition level besides, with FC Cincinnati. So I was really happy for him, I guess for this, I'm going to be sad, like I said, but overall pretty excited to see maybe like we were talking about, maybe he does play in the Premier League. I know, Zach, there was rumors that he might be looking at a championship loan
Okay.
or a last, ditch effort from the MLS teams to get him back. But
Yeah, I think with him being at the Wolves, I think it's really interesting because I feel like with
I think your
Mosquera,
video's paused, by the way, if you want to try to
is
unpause.
I apologize.
It's all good.
It's the post holiday. This computer got a lot of use. No, I was gonna say just real quick before we move on, just Mosquera having that foundation, and really I think coming coming out of the Wolves, his future after Premier League. Hey, he could have loved Cincinnati, and he might be back. You never know.
Hmm. Yeah, I think maybe down the line we see him, maybe we see Vazquez coming back. But we'll see. Moving on to the big news, from today. I think it was right about noon. I'm looking through my Twitter feed and I see one Miles Robinson, 27-year-old center back from Atlanta United, is signed by FC Cincinnati. And what a swoop it is, Zach. U.S. men's national team player. Unfortunately, like I mentioned in prior podcasts, has torn his Achilles just prior to the World Cup, but otherwise would have been a World Cup player, maybe even fringe starter. But unbelievable player. Seems like a really good person too. I was going to get really excited to have him and Brandon Vazquez be teammates again because it sounded like they're pretty good buds. But Zach, again, what are your initial thoughts on such a huge transfer? I know you found out a little bit later on in the day, but
Yeah, huge sigh of relief. I can't be more happy with obviously Mascara leaving, Miles Robinson coming in. It it definitely gives me a sigh of relief, like I mentioned, because I mean I think it fills the role that of Mascara leaving. I think he'll I mean with his Achilles injury, I don't know. I haven't really been following him much, but with him being in free agency, he hasn't really played much probably lately, and I don't know
towards the end of the
how
year, he had an injury, I think. But
was it.
other
Okay,
than that, he had a pretty solid bounce back year, all things considered.
gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't following him very much, so I think it's with a new fresh team. I think he's gonna. Uh, I think it's good too because he had a lot of leadership at Atlanta too. So
Right.
I think having that back line, having Ian Murphy and wow, new
Miazga.
guy. What's the new guy?
Oh, Kip Keller.
Kip Keller.
Yeah.
Um, those two kind of looking up to Miles and Matt Miazga.
I mean, what better players to have kind of to mentor you on how to be professionals? I mean, both are relatively still young in some senses, but have had like oodles of MLS experience. I think for those not familiar, Miles Robinson is a fringe MLS best 11 center back. Um, signs basically on a free in some ways. So he signed through 2024 with a club option for 2025. This kind of leaves him with some possible room to go to Europe. I know there's a lot of buzz online and a lot of U.S. men's national team fans that aren't very happy about him not moving to Europe, but you can't blame the guy for, getting paid. I think we're going to be able to give him a good salary for him not to play on turf, more importantly, after seeing his injury history. So I think that really helps. And the fact that now, Miles has played in several games in TQL. Zach, dating back to his first MLS goal was actually in TQL Stadium against FC Cincinnati in 2021. Shortly after that, about a month later, he plays with the U.S. men's national team against Mexico and starts that game and has a
Huh,
really, really good game. So the dude has seen what the city, can bring and the support that we give. So I can't blame him. Maybe
that's
I'm
awesome.
biased, but for signing, with us. I think he was the top MLS free agent that was out there. All positions, put and for us to do this and like him to
Yep.
visit on that first day of free agency is like massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really have to also look at age being a factor. It kind of blew my mind that he's only 26. Like
Yeah.
for some reason, I always thought he doesn't look like he ages, but um, I think also with that, he's still got 5, 6 more years left.
Yeah.
Matt's almost what, 31, I think.
Matt is
Or is he 30?
similar, I think. I want to say he's actually not terribly.
I thought he was up there.
Let's look it up actually, because he
Tells
came
you how
back to
little.
us and he was like only 28 or something like that, I believe. Um, yeah, dude. Matt Miazga's 28.
Yeah, okay.
So
Wow. I
talk
didn't know that.
about getting center backs in their prime.
Right.
You know,
That's huge.
that's massive. And I think Miazga's ceiling, he's been to Europe. He's going to be here a while. But Miles is kind of one of those. We'll see how he does this year. Does it cement him for US team? I don't know. It's yet to be seen. But if he stays consistent, it's hard to argue. You know, we can go into a little bit of US men's national team talk here. Greg Berhalter has his guys and
Yeah.
he trusts them. And, you know, Miles tears his Achilles, but even afterwards in his recovery and him now playing again, he's been chosen by Greg even after that. We have some other young guys that are playing in the Premier League, so it's going to create a battle, but I still think he has a at least bench spot in my opinion right now. And if he keeps playing well, I mean, look at how we've kind of developed Miazga back into the US men's national team picture.
Hmm.
Look at now how we've developed Vazquez. I know different position, but he can kind of see that we can bring these guys to a next level and to really showcase them. Atlanta's a big town and a big city, but and there's some big names that have been transferred out, but I just felt like Miles wants to be around a better atmosphere here in some ways. You know, I think, you know, I don't know,
Winning
again,
team.
I'm biased, but what did you say?
A winning team.
Winning team. I mean, well, that's what I was thinking about earlier today is, you know, we're in the Champions League, you know, for CONCACAF. So maybe he wants to play at that high level and maybe he gets scouted because he is playing in more high profile games and more competitions available for that. You know,
Right.
maybe he's able to play that many more games because he's not playing on turf too. I don't know. He's looking at the
A valid
longevity
point.
of his career.
Absolutely. And it's not far off to say that athletes look at the playing surface when they
Right.
make decisions.
Yeah. I was not gonna lie, I was pretty shocked that he was leaving Atlanta in the way that he did. Um, I don't think that says anything about him, but more about them. I hate to say that. Sorry for all the Atlanta fans, but um, yeah, I think all of it pointed towards a better atmosphere, a better position, people
Mhm.
he's familiar with. And props to, again, our ownership and our leadership team, Albright, for going out and being aggressive and, you know, being the front runner for him from the get-go, it seems like. I know there was teams from abroad that were interested in him. He had options, it seemed like, in Turkey, some rumors for, you know, going to the Dutch league. But huge get for us. Absolutely excited. Any final, I guess, comments about the Miles Robinson signing?
No, I think we hit on everything.
Yeah,
That's
I think on his own could have been eventually a captain type player. You know, I think, did captain Atlanta side a few times as well. But between, you know, you have Lucho as a captain,
so.
Miazga, Robinson, I mean, unbelievable chemistry is coming towards us in the back line. And I think this has got to be the best defense we've ever had. Questionably, like in MLS, like if you
I,
look at it now,
yep.
it's pretty unbelievable. You have the defender of the year. You have a guy that could have been best 11 defender. If Barrial were to stay, I mean, another best 11 and
Yeah.
a right back who, you know, played for Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. Like
Unreal.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that's how I felt about Mosquera. And I still feel like the dude eventually is going to be a starter, you know, over in England. So the talent is just unbelievable that we have and way better than the first several years. That was the other thing I wanted to just briefly touch on is like for us to go after these guys and not just be like leveraging things for agents, but to actually sign them because they want to be here is
Right.
like the vast difference between then and now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and not only that, it's having a winning team. Like
Mhm.
more 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 players are wanting to look here because hey, we're actually doing something. Like the
Right.
front office is actually trying to improve the team, right? As opposed to like the third year of our spoon year. I, who would want to come here, right? Like
Right.
you'd have
So
to take a huge risk
true.
to
Think
do that.
about this, Zach. I was just thinking the US men's national team is creating a training center in Atlanta. You would think if there was a player that was on the fringe of being a national team player that he would want to stay around that. But it tells me the trust that he has in our ownership and our coaches to develop him into that much more of a player. And it seems like the connections that, Dom Kinnear has with the national team, Chris Albright has with the national team, Pat Noonan, all of those guys have so many good connections for him to continue down that route. He went away from where the U.S. is building this training center. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, that's wild to say that and to think like none of our coaches have been scalped yet. Or any of
Right.
our assistant coaches. I mean, it's just we're
Knock on wood, dude. Knock on wood.
so lucky to have the foundation that we do right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, as one piece is added later on in the day, one is taken away, but this one seemed to be coming. Brandon Vazquez, our love striker, Mr. Superman himself, is leaving to go to CF Monterey. I butchered that. Monterey,
Monterey
and
CF.
the Mexican league. Monterey is a top CONCACAF team. Um, at some points, I know we were getting a little, I would say a little interested by the move to say, is it a lateral move? Is it not? I mean, Monterey is a massive club. They have a beautiful stadium. Um, Vasquez, let's say it as it is. He's going to get paid more, and the position that he's going to have there maybe continues this fringe U.S. men's national team player pool. But it doesn't hurt his chances, I don't think. I think it kind of keeps him where he was at. If he goes to Europe, maybe it lifts it up, but there's no guarantees with that. At least down in that league, you're still playing MLS teams. You're still kind of in the limelight of things. I think the money came down, at least from an FC Cincinnati standpoint, to why we went after him. Right now, Zach, rumored up to $7.5 million transfer, with up to 8.5 with bonuses based on how he performs. And crucial point here, 10% sell on, meaning if Monterey sells him to another team, we get 10% of that sale, which is unbelievable.
You know, I think we got a sweetheart deal on that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
I think Monterey overpaid tremendously. I'm just gonna say it like it is. That was a very surprising signing, or
Yeah.
I guess transfer. I was not expecting, honestly, Vasquez to at least leave in this window. Maybe more likely next, at least to kind of get us off the ground in the first half of the season, and then just seeing the transfer value, the 7.5 million. I was like, holy smokes! Like
Yeah.
we bought him for 150K
Yeah.
and sold him on for 7.5 million. I mean,
They must have
that's
watched
ridiculous.
the Chivas films, from Leagues Cup when we played Chivas and he had a hat trick. He's like, all right, he can play up to this competition.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't think that was ever a question. I think it was just like you said. Is it a lateral move or is it? I mean, Monterey is one of the top clubs in Liga MX, so I guess it goes to say that while they might be paid more, competition might be similar-ish to what I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. That's what I mean, the Champions League was or
Right.
what too many dang trophies. Leagues Cup.
Leagues Cup. Yeah.
Leagues
Yeah.
Cup. I mean, we were all very competitive, so I
Yeah.
think it's safe to say it was a fairly lateral move, and in my opinion, I feel like if you're wanting to go to Europe where, all the big players go, I think the MLS, or United States is more there's a lot more looking into the United States than they are Mexico at the moment, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's true. He's dual citizenship, so for him to kind of go back home in some ways is cool, or to his roots, I should say. Um, yeah, the looks are interesting to see like how that will translate. He is 27, so he's at his prime right now. Um, if there was a chance for him to go to a big European team, I felt like now would have been the time. Um, Not to like dig on Vasquez, but I mean his play style is actually more fit for more European soccer in my opinion. He's more of a hold up type striker. But
Less direct.
yeah, he's physical. I think the Mexican league is quick, it's technical, it's so fast, but sometimes it's hard for Brandon to equate to that, or like his touch sometimes is not all the way there.
Yep.
His positioning is sublime. Like he's really, really good at that. But if he can really work on being quick on the ball, I think he'll succeed well. With Monterrey, and maybe practicing in that environment around those people will only boost that. And I would love to see that for him. I mean, for him
The
being FC Cincinnati's leading goal scorer of all time, 40 plus goals in 2 seasons. He knows how to score at this level. It's just about the ways that he's going to do it.
you're spot on. I think, I mean, from my point of view, if my biggest weakness was, moving on the ball and dribbling, what better place to go to work on that, right?
True. Yeah,
Like,
to prove to everyone that you can do it.
absolutely. I mean, that was his big, in my opinion, that was his biggest weakness, playing for us,
Yeah.
just movement on the ball. And then, I think, yeah, to your point, I think it's a good move for him. In other words,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, not like a slight of Vasquez at all. He was unbelievable. I really am going to miss him. And honestly, like his character too, how he represented this team. I think, really vaulted his career, and he appreciates that. I mean, look at where he was as a backup, and then you get new coaches, new people that trust in him, and he thrived, and he got his shot with the U.S. men's national team. Um, may continue that way, but I think the way that we've vaulted him only helps us in the future. Like we kind of rumored on, earlier on in the podcast, maybe he eventually comes back because of that good relationship. Would love to see that. But moving on from Brandon, we'll miss him. That kind of leaves a little bit of a void at the striker position. Zach, I'm going to move kind of striker to striker because of a rumor we heard today.
sure.
Corey Baird, Houston FC. They list him as a midfielder. I think he's more of like a forward or a false nine is how I would describe him. Yeah, played with the Dynamo, had a pretty good season last year, actually. 9 goals and 5 assists in 39 games, I believe it was, in the league. I think it was 8-5. Pretty solid. Zach, what are your thoughts on this rumor that we had seen today I think it was shortly after the Vazquez announcement?
Um, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I've ever seen him play. I've not seen a highlight reel of him. I think I vaguely remember him when he played at LAFC for that small, like, half season.
Hmm.
The name rang a bell, but I mean, really, I think everywhere he's gone, it seems like someone's played better than him in that position. So
Hmm.
him coming to FC Cincinnati, I'm curious to see where he would fit in. I don't, like I said, I haven't seen any of his reels, so I don't know how his play style is or his positioning. But I think I noticed he was also a left winger as
Hmm.
well. He has quite a few goals on that left side. So yeah, in our 2023 season, I think he would um, probably fit in as a partner to Boo Penza.
Hmm.
You know, I you know part of me also thinks he could play a left back. You know,
Hmm.
I think they're thinking of it in that way.
Interesting.
I mean, he's still youngish. I mean, he can move. don't, like I said, I've not seen any highlight reels to see how
Right.
his defensive work rate is, but Barreal did it.
Yeah,
I'm
he
sure
converted.
someone else could figure it out.
Yeah, good point. And maybe that like vaults him to find like his prime spot. He mainly had been used, like I said, as a forward, false nine. He kind of likes to drop back and get the ball similar to what Brenner did. But if he's got a decent left foot, maybe we see him there, or maybe on the right outside back too. I mean, good shout on that. That would be interesting if that happened that way. I think that in some ways he would be valuable as possible like 10 fill-in for Lucho if Lucho's out. So you could kind of see him at a position that creates a little bit more. I think we had a text thread about this on would he be at a same level as Baji and Santos, which their numbers kind of align in some ways. I think Corey still has good potential, but he's not the home run, person that we're looking for. It's going to be hard to really find that striker right now. Um, Especially, middle of the season for European clubs and whatnot. If we were to get a home run person, I think it would be in the summer.
Mhm.
Really, it's going to come down to if, Corey Baird is signed, is it a less contract than what Baji was looking at? And I think the value of those two and the decision that's made there will decide one versus the other. I don't think we take both. I think Baji right now is a free agent. So they're looking at both of them. They're looking at how much money each one wants, how much each one could contribute, and the value past that as well. Could they be used in different positions like we were talking about, or in different ways, like we've seen them do? So I think that's something to look out for. Again, I had just heard about this today. I don't know if there's much to that or not. But it sounds like at least we were interested. We were interested in Jordy Mihailovic, though. I don't know if you heard about that, but he just signed with Colorado in a DP spot. Would have been a sick bring in by us to bring him in, but again, way too much money than what we were wanting to spend, I think.
Yeah, I think you touched on a little bit about the whole Santos Baji mix, which I'll kind of touch on a little bit later. But yeah, I think you put it into my mind the thing about Baji being in free agency and choosing between one or the other. I guess the decision is the devil you know or the devil you don't,
That's true.
right?
You know what one brings. So
Yeah, and I mean I'm gonna be honest, Baji played a heck of a season this past
he did.
year, and just coming off that season, I'm sure he's probably going to be wanting to ask for a little bit more money. So
Well, money and minutes. I think that's the
that
big
too,
ask is if we can give him the amount of minutes that he wants.
right?
So are we willing to say he's our second striker with Bupenza? I don't know. Not sure on that one.
Difficult questions, and difficult answers.
We'll see. We'll see is the answer. But one last rumor we had is Alvaro Barrial again to RC Lens. Any updates on that, Zach, that you saw? I know I had seen Laurel confirm there was interest, nothing concrete at this point. It seems all things are leading to him leaving. Diego Palacios was the other guy that we were interested in, left back or wing back, I should say, from LA FC. He has since gone to Corinthians in Brazil. So the interest that we have in a player like that tells me that they're expecting Barrial at some point to leave. Now, what we touched on briefly is about how early the Vazquez transfer has happened now. It leaves roughly about $1.2 million in GAM available from the Vazquez trade or transfer alone.
Mm.
You add Barrial to that, you have more GAM or funny money, to work with and bring in new players. So the sooner some of this develops, in some ways, it's better for us to kind of figure out what our next steps are.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think I mean Barrial, we obviously know is leaving one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I guess what big club wants to take him or
Right.
what club wants to take him. And really, my biggest question is who's going to fill the like what are we doing with the money? Are we and we'll touch on that a little bit more later, but that's my biggest question. I mean, do you invest back into the academy and develop those players? I mean, you see what Halsey's bringing
I would love to hear more. Yeah, in the second part, stay tuned to that. I really want to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll touch on it later because it's exciting, fun stuff.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I kind of had like this huge smile on my face going into this episode just because, again, like there wasn't a whole bunch around like between Christmas and the New Year, and then all of a sudden, like all of this stuff comes out, which I think is a product of, Zach, we have like 53 days, I think, until the MLS season starts. So it's amazing how fast it's going to sneak up on us. I think players are probably reporting in another week or two.
About
Uh,
to ask.
so I think it'll be pretty soon here that you'll see stuff start to happen even more over the next week. So that's more content for us, Zach. I'm happy about that.
We'll talk about more podcasts.
That's right. Zach, I do have a trivia question for you. Where does the Brandon Vazquez outbound transfer sit in the MLS record books? Meaning from the MLS to a different league, where does that sit in terms of transfers?
And say like ranking number, like
Correct.
top 8, top 7, top 6.
Yeah, you can give me that if you.
I guess if you have that number, that's so. Are we doing the 7.5 or the 8.5?
If he lives up to his 8.5, we'll go 8.5.
Okay, I will say that's probably. Let's say number 6.
All right.
Top 6 transfer
Outbound transfer. Well,
outbound transfer.
wait until the end of the episode and you'll find out the answer. We're going to do a quick break here and we'll be right back.
Train different, get better. We believe that offering different kinds of training will help keep the training fresh, keep the athletes motivated. And we believe that by training a little bit different, you're naturally going to get better. We want to see athletes grow in their confidence and their abilities. This happens naturally because they're getting 300 to 500 touches in a half hour. So they start feeling more comfortable on the ball, which allows them to make more decisions based on what's going on in the game instead of focusing on the ball itself.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin podcast. We're in the second part of this episode in our off season. Zach, I didn't really think we were going to have much to talk about tonight, but man, I was pretty pumped about some of the news. Obviously disappointed to see Vazquez go, but Miles Robinson's going to be a huge add for us. I think during the break, I had told you, I tweeted out from our podcast account, shout out to Dom Kinnear, our assistant coach, for really developing Brenner and Vazquez over the past couple years. Unproven strikers, really turned them into studs and really, really good players for our club, and then actually turning them into huge profits for us overall. We broke even with Brenner, in terms of money, based on the amount of money we spent versus what we got. But Vazquez came in, for 150,000, and we're now, potentially getting 8.5 million out of it. Like, huge credit to all of the coaching staff for really developing both guys.
Nailed it. Couldn't have said it better. Honestly, I'm gonna be the one who doesn't really, I guess, pay attention to the deep information that Ryan gets, but I didn't even know that Dom Kinnear was a striker coach, or at least worked with strikers that often. So
Striker whisperer.
he's not what you would look at as a striker. You know what I mean? Like
back in the day, they're built differently. Look at Pele. I don't think Pele was too big.
That's true.
Messi, I mean, too, if you want to consider him a striker, but I don't know. He's more of a winger, I guess.
I guess see the GOATs 10, 15 years from now.
That's right. Yeah. Zach, I have a fun segment for us. I mentioned earlier on, there's this stadium district that is being built by the club, actually. This is really cool. A $300 million contribution by the club to build this district next to TQL Stadium. So in the West End, right next to over the Rhine. Awesome location for us to start building some restaurants, some bars, apartments, offices. A hotel is rumored to be there, a concert venue. Yeah, another one. And an outdoor space. I've always been calling for a gathering place for away games for everyone to come and to watch, similar to, a Kansas City type vibe for the World Cup, where everyone can kind of just hang out and watch those games together around the stadium too. So it's finally starting to be built. I think they're doing construction starting this year, actually.
Demo's done.
I think the demo's done. Everything is flat from what I'm seeing.
Oh, wow.
Everything is rumored to be similar to the Wrigleyville, or Gallagher Way is what they call it, next to the Cubs Stadium. Or in DC, the Wharf is very similar as well. But pretty cool places to hang out before the game, after the game, non-game days, game days, World Cup games. It's rumored to be done, at least one part of it, by 2025, 2026. That puts us right around hosting the World Cup in America. So what a better time to kind of showcase that area. I'm super pumped about it, just because I already love going to the Pitch. Shout out to the Pitch down by TQL. Just a soccer bar, but just to have more of that vibe to go to. Maybe that creates an awesome atmosphere for Premier League games in the mornings and stuff. I know you're pretty hyped about that. So what are your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of bar hopping over in that area. I mean, it's looking to be a really cool little zone over there. I think the hotel is gonna look really. I'm hoping, at least. I don't know. I've seen renderings, but renderings obviously don't always
Right.
play out to be what it looks like. But it'll be cool seeing the hotel, on the horizon. Like, when from our seats, actually, you'll be able to see it
That's
up
true. Can you
behind the
imagine
Bailey.
staying there, or having, let's say Miles Robinson is coming in to be a player at FC Cincinnati, and they're like, all right, let's convince him. Let's put, his name on the fins, and let's give him the red tour, but let's have him stay in the hotel that overlooks the stadium too. And he can see his name all night, lit up on the stadium.
That sounds like something straight from Ted Lasso or something.
It really is. It would be incredible. It's like they created biscuits for Ted Lasso. You know what I mean? Similar type thing. But I'm really excited about it. I've been chatting your ear off about this.
You
I
won't shut
have
up.
I know I can't. I'm just so excited about this whole project. But what do you think the name of this district should be? I mean, there's all of these names for all these other places, and it'll probably end up being named after somebody. But I think we came up with some pretty cool names for this space. But I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, I've got it with FC Cincinnati and its roots based out of medieval times, and having the supporter section called the Bailey.
Sure.
You gotta go all in on it, right? So I went ahead. I actually put two down just because they're kind of similar-ish, but keeping with the medieval theme. My thoughts were the Village. I mean, because it's like you got offices, you got bars,
Yeah.
apartments, living spaces. I mean, it's all right there. The Village or the Berg. Either way,
Ooh.
I think those both would be pretty sweet.
Can you imagine shirts that said the Berg and the Bailey?
The Berg
Find
and
me
Oh.
find me at the Berg and the Bailey.
It sounds great. It rolls off the tongue.
That'd be pretty sick. I actually really like that. I like the Village too. Both of them are good. And I like the tie-in to the Bailey. I mean, I don't know, I think man, I'm blanking on the guy's name that came up with the Bailey and the name for it. I see him every time we go to the stadium when they talk about the Bailey. The director of operations. I'm totally blanking on his name, but yeah, I don't know, now that that's established, let's just roll with that theme. But
Exactly. It's been ingrained in my mind.
That's right. Yep. I'm gonna go with mine. I'm gonna call it the Den. So FC Cincinnati, Gary is the Lion. So kind of in a nod to that, I'm gonna term it the Den, right? So Den standing for the Designated Entertainment Neighborhood. And that way you can, similar to the Village, it's a living community. It's a place you can go out to bars, and the neighborhood vibe, making the Den. I thought that would be pretty cool.
That's actually really neat. You could do a lot of cool things with that, especially with Gary and all,
Right.
Gary the Lion, hanging out in I guess there's going to be a not a courtyard, but a plaza,
Mm-hmm.
away games, like have appearances if people are watching it from outside. Like that's just all I want. It's like community in that area.
Right.
What better place to call it than the den where everybody's together?
Yeah, everyone's together, even during the terrible winter.
Cold.
Cold, yeah. But I mean, I could see us using this space, outdoor events like you mentioned, watching games, like they have a big projector screen for it, similar to like Fountain Square. But also for, big events that might come to the city, like the All-Star game. We're rumored to be potentially getting that 2025, 2026. MLS All-Star game would bring in some huge people, but potentially a big European team possibly, and there's different options for that every year. It seems like they change it, but if there is a concert venue, a giant stage to display new players, to have MLS meetings there, there's a lot of options in a mixed use space. But the fact that the club owns all that space and gets all that money goes back to the investment in the team. So I think that's huge that it's not like outside necessarily.
Absolutely. It's gonna force the teams that travel to us to actually stay in that and pay us money.
Yeah. All right. So on Twitter, Zach, we're gonna put it out there, or our reels for this episode. We're really gonna put it out there for the Den, the Village, or the Berg. We would love to see any of those three for this district area. Pretty pumped for that to happen and to see what develops over the next couple of years. I think they'll probably tie in the team shop to that area as well. Maybe create a way on the north entrance for people to kind of walk right into it. That would be pretty awesome as well if you wanted to pregame there and just walk over.
Absolutely. And we really want to know what you guys think too. Like
Yeah,
give
for
us
sure.
suggestions on names. We'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give us some names for it. But have that on your radar. So moving on, Zach, Sam and I had done our transfers that we would like to see. Now with the official European window open, maybe some stuff starts happening a little bit more. Where are you kind of looking at our position wise on what we're, wanting to do?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go a little different route from what you and Sam went. You guys kind of called out specific players.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm all about developing the youth, right? So from that perspective, I think you there's so many unknowns with that. You could either get a hit or a big miss. So with that, I don't have any names, but I do like to with all the money that we're getting from the sale of uh, Vasquez and then possibly Barreal, having that money. Do we spend that money on a big name player, or do we invest it back into the academy where we could possibly get 3, 4, 5 big players?
Right.
Um, whereas I mean already where our academy is developed and is in the process of developing. What is that? 5? There's like 3 on the bench right now, and
Right.
then 1 or 2 starters. So
Yeah.
really, I think our academy is like in full swing and doing excellent work. So really, um, with that being said, I'd love to see some new players from our academy being signed. Backup outside backs, which I mean, we've got trying to think who we have is like
Powell and
new Valenzuela.
yeah.
Gosh, I should have wrote this down because there's quite a few of them. But I mean, Halsey, he's probably going to be at least either starting or being a sub come next year. So
Right.
really, I mean, the two big ones. I mean, we're losing Barreal, don't have his fill yet, and then we've also got Vasquez, obviously, who's now gone. So
Right.
um, I think our biggest gap then at that point between the two, I would say go for a forward,
Mhm.
because I think there's more what do you call it? The, I think a forward can do more for the offense than just an outside back because they outside backs you could play Arias in center back,
Yeah.
but in
Unless
reality, not a good idea.
unless
Like
their name is Barrial, and then like he was kind of outside of that point, but yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of players who can play outside back and center back. So it's a very specialized position. So I think um, having a forward, I mean, we've got Baji, we got Santos. Um, I'm talking in circles a little bit because it's difficult because you got that niche position of the outside back, which we
Mhm.
don't have a backup on. But then you've got Baji on a free agent, don't really have another forward, and then you got Santos. Santos is very
Right.
injury. Like if you don't have anybody scoring goals, then you're not going to be winning, right?
True.
So it's a very complicated and you know mad props to the people who are able to scout and figure out the dynamics of the all the funny money that is tossed around MLS because I can't follow it. Gonna be honest, that's a whole math problem. Not big on math.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're
That's
making
my
good points. Um, Especially the outside back position, I think is the most intriguing for me at this point. Because right now you have pretty much two unknowns. At least in a striker position, you do have at least um, Bupenza, who's been solid, but somewhat unproven in some ways too, compared to what we were thinking.
Mhm.
You have potentially more depth at a striker position with young players, from your point. Valenzuela, he's young, but could also step into a bigger role this year. Kimi Ordonez, we still have, could he step into more of a role? If you look at outside backs, I mean, you have Halsey, but other than that, I mean, Powell is experienced, so might bring you some good minutes, but I don't think is ready for a full-time starting spot at this point. So addressing, that position first, I think is what they'll really go for next. Trying to get back Arias, I think that would be huge. And then Mourinho might be kind of interesting to see. I was thinking about with bringing Miles Robinson in, Zach. Does this kind of change the way that we play? Does it change our positioning? Do we go away from a three-back system to maybe four in the back, four in the midfield in a diamond, and then two up front, which is what Albright and Noonan were used to in Philly. And with the people we have, we seemingly have more depth in the midfield. I would feel pretty confident about Obi in front of Miles Robinson and Miazga. And then, can you convert Murphy to a left back type role if you need him to? If you
Where he
need
doesn't
him
have
in a
to go up
pinch.
as far.
Yeah, maybe that works better. Or, you know, do we kind of foster our team based on where our strengths are right now? And trying to get more support, because I felt like at times last year we struggled to create goals in some ways compared to the year before, especially. And we relied more on Barrial and the width, but it kind of made us one dimensional. If Vazquez was quiet, Bupenza didn't produce, Acosta consistently saved us, but can we get more attacking options from the midfield is what I would love to see. And, I think you make a good shout, though, for developing our young players. They haven't proven it based on records in the MLS Next Pro level. But you've seen, like you mentioned, 3, 4, maybe 5 guys now that have signed contracts to the first team. At what point do they make the next step? Do they see meaningful minutes? And I think that's what Sam and I had talked on is, do you see Angulo do more of that? Do you see Pinto do more of that this year? And do we, go to that strength with more people in the midfield that's geared towards that? That's kind of what I'm intrigued by.
Yeah, because I mean, I think you need that speed and that youthfulness in the midfield to be able to have that many minutes and with how many games we play now in the season
Mm-hmm.
with it being in such a outstretched season. I think yeah, I mean you're right. I think having that depth too of having that youthfulness and being able to because really with just how the salary
Mm-hmm.
rules are, it doesn't incentivize paying for expensive players to sit on the bench, right?
Right.
So it I think you'll see more academy players coming out
Yeah,
just for smaller minutes. Like we kind of did a little bit in the more congested last year where we
true.
had I think that maybe 10 minutes here and there, but
Right.
that's all you really need to see how a player, plays in that competition, right?
We
So
have a setup lineup right now to win. And I think, like, to my point to you on text was, you know, I know developing the youth is important, and we have a lot of young guys right now that are available to even progress to the next level that are almost on nothing contracts, that you do have more capabilities to buy players now to really go for it. When
mhm.
are you going to have two starting level US men's national team center backs, maybe a third goalkeeper and Roman Celentano? Like, some people are saying
Yeah.
he might be the third goalie for the US men's national team at some point.
Hmm.
Um, the MVP of the MLS, and you just sold, Brandon Vazquez, who had been playing for the US as well, Bupenza, who plays for Gabon. Like, you have huge pieces. Obi, I mean, you're not gonna be complacent, in my opinion. You're gonna go for it. And that's why you've seen him go after Palacios, go after Robinson. Like, I think they realize, like, now is the time to capitalize in some ways. And not that, like, we can't continue that, but I think age plays a factor into that, where people are in their development plays a factor into that too. Are they ready for Pinto to step into that um, Moreno spot, and
Right.
stuff like that really depends on what they see in training day in and day out, which we, being podcasters, we
Yeah.
don't see that every day. The
We just do
coaching
one game
staff,
a week.
that's right, exactly. And we can see them play 10 minutes and say that's great, but they see the full development over a season. And I really trust the coaching staff that we have, and think it's really important that from last year to this year and even the year prior, we've kept that continuous, it seems like. So you really are fostering relationships and really good chemistry between your players and all the coaching staff. Everyone is on the same page. I mean, how many MLS teams flip-flop their coaches this year and are starting over in new systems with new players? I mean, we've stayed consistent for 3 years.
That'd be a good trivia question.
I think it's been 8 teams that have new coaches this year or something like that.
Golly, that's
Yeah,
wild.
it's crazy, man.
But no,
Some
yeah, you nailed it. I mean, everything you're saying. I mean, it kind of giving me the chills on some of it because it's like the excitement. I mean, there's so much. I think going into this next season, I think we'll be better than we were at the beginning of last season. I mean,
That's a bold take, man. I like that. I like
eh,
that.
just judging from some of the moves, but I guess it just depends on who we bring in. I mean,
It
we got the
really
two.
depends on what we do with the money now. And
Yeah,
they've been really smart about how they've used it and where they've used it. And I look forward to kind of seeing how they take advantage of this, because it is a congested schedule and you need depth. We have 5 roster spots open right now and 5 international spots actually too. So you can go out and get some people overseas. Depends on, do you want to have some of that in your back pocket in the middle of the year as well?
yeah. What's
So
the going rate for the international roster spot?
ask Nashville, man. They've been doing that up and down recently.
Yeah, we get sold.
150,000 GAM or something, but
Yeah, that's what I thought.
yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy. But there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of options. Going back to some of the guys that Sam and I had mentioned, one of them being Kai Wagner from Philly, who's now a free agent. There's various interests here in the past several weeks, some rumors of him going overseas to AEK Athens in Greece, to Rangers, potentially Red Stars Belgrade as well. I think I saw some pretty good borderline like Europa League, Champions League type teams. Kellen Acosta, I think, would be another cool one, like I had mentioned before, but no real update on him. I think his contract would be have to at this point be less than 600,000. I saw a poll by some LAFC fans that said, like, would you like to see him back? And if yes, like, how much you'd be willing to pay? Like, it was like 800 or 600,000. And a lot of them said they were ready to move on to a different midfielder. It was kind of interesting.
Oh wow,
Yeah. So I was kind
that's
of shocked by that.
I think, yeah, we'll probably get him cheaper.
Yeah, man, who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe. And so what really helps getting Miles Robinson is like you get some potentially other interests from other US players to
Yeah.
come and play in Cincinnati. Or, friends of Miles or whatever, we'll play the Messi card, friends of Miles, friends of Messi, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll see how that kind of trickles over. But other than that, some of the other guys we mentioned, there's been a little bit of chatter about Edward Etuesta, so former LAFC guy. I think LAFC is actually looking to bring him back from Palmeiras
I was
in
gonna say,
Brazil.
you've got
So
a lot of players on this list. LAFC. I guess
yeah,
Noonan and Albright see something in there.
I mean, I think, well, trying to think of where Bruce Arena's son,
Kenny.
Kenny, yeah, Kenny, who's our assistant coach, was with LA Galaxy or
Mm,
LAFC. I forget which one. I think it was LA Galaxy. No, it was LAFC. So there might be some ties to that.
I see.
And maybe that helps us to try to get Atuesta because he had been assistant coach when he was there, from what I'm seeing. So that would be a
Interesting.
pretty cool get there. But otherwise, Zach, any final, I guess, points you want to talk on for the next couple weeks, man? I think every day you're going to be hearing new names, new rumors. I've been scrolling through, X or Twitter, trying to look at all of these and trying to like digest what's real, what's not. A lot of it is smoke by the agents trying to create interest, but
Yeah, you said there's 53 days until the season, right? So
mhm,
probably reporting in the next couple weeks. I mean, yeah, transfers are going to be coming in and out all across the league the next couple weeks. Expect big names. Expect some more lesser known. I
mhm,
mean, I think there's going to be. I think it's going to be this season for MLS is going to be pretty big, in my
mhm,
opinion. I think there's going to be more excitement, more eyes on the league. I think I think more I think us winning the supporter shield, more people respect the supporter shield. Unless it's just from what FCC Twitter says. I don't know. They're always louder than everybody else, so who knows? Um,
yeah, man, it'll be
I think
interesting.
it's going to be an exciting season. I don't I think we're well past the being bottom feeders, so I think
Yeah, as
we're. I
long
mean,
as we have
definitely playoffs again this season.
I think so. I mean, Miles coming to us helps with that, but what we do with the striker position, like we got to create goals. And right now, like I'm not seeing a ton of attacking options besides the MVP and Lucho and Bupenza. Besides those two, like where's your goal production going to come from?
Yeah, because your left back did it all.
Your left back did it all. Your MVP obviously did a lot of it too. But you need creators. You need people that can
Mhm.
support those players, to be honest with you. I mean, you see how Lucho played with Vazquez, how he played with Brenner in the past. He likes that style of player, and I really think they're going to kind of target people to fit around both pieces. And that'll be interesting to see how that develops.
It'll be a crazy couple weeks coming up.
I think so, man. Final notes that I have. I believe the Copa America is coming to the US this summer. So I was kind of looking at our schedule and everything and how that is impacted by the Copa America. I think that starts in June, then goes through July. So now with Miles Robinson on our team, I think we're going to be down some center backs if Miazga makes the roster potentially too. So another little point, like you gain a player, but do you miss out on this player too because of the way that the MLS scheduling is? I don't
With
know. That's kind of
international
interesting. International
or
breaks, yeah.
lack
So
of.
it's good that our players are getting these looks, and like I never thought I'd say this, but like we'll be missing them in these key games too. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Absolutely. It makes you really look back and think, how did we only lose? Was it 5 games last season?
Yeah, even with like having so many of these guys out for different things.
Man,
Yeah,
sorry, it just makes me excited because I think we're gonna do similar feats this year.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I'm
I
pretty
can't wait
pumped.
to do more season predictions as the weeks come by as we get closer to the season start. But
Absolutely.
I think there'll be some fun takes and hot takes coming up soon.
Yep. So to give you guys our trivia question and answer here, we'll go back to that and see if Zach got it right. So where does the Brandon Vazquez outbound transfer sit in the MLS record books? And Zach had said that it was 6 overall.
I
Based
did.
on Transfer Market, surprisingly, this sits at 13th in the MLS for outbound transfers. I was kind of shocked by this. Um, Brenner is actually higher, like we had mentioned before, sitting at the 10th spot
Oh
with
wow.
10 million. Yeah. And then kind of crazy to look at. Almiron, when he was with Atlanta, went for 24 million to Newcastle.
Hmm.
Duran from Chicago, 16.6 million. Pepe, 16. Pity Martinez for 16. Petrovic to Chelsea, who's now, starting goalkeeper at Chelsea for 14. Alphonso Davies. Like, we've had some good players that have left. But Vazquez sits all the way down at now 13. But kind of crazy to me that a lot of these have been from more recent years. It's really showing the talent that is being scouted by some of the other leagues now too.
Man, those are some interesting numbers you're shouting out. I mean, those are all within the past 5 years, maybe
Mm-hmm.
5, 6 years. I
Yeah,
mean,
mainly in the names that we said. The one that I saw that was a little bit further back, Josie Altidore was the highest for a while. 2008, 2009 to Villarreal for 7 million, which was the highest for so many years until I think Alphonso Davies was the next biggest one after that.
inflation.
Inflation, yeah, for real. And more interest in the league just getting better overall, I think,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
that was just a joke, but yeah, I absolutely agree. I think MLS is definitely developing better players over the years, and I think we're gonna hit the level that a lot of people expect Europe to be at. So give it a decade.
Yep. Yep. Well, thanks again for everyone for tuning in. You can find us again, YouTube, Spotify. We'll be putting out more content, I would imagine, because of all these news coming out. We'll do some season predictions coming up. We'll kind of break down the schedule, different competitions, and then hopefully get some guests coming on here pretty soon as well. So thanks again. And Zach, have a good rest of your night.
Have a good one.